It started, yes, 3 days ago. It started on Wednesday, and it's going to end tomorrow.
Okay, now let's move to the new polling units. You know that when it comes to elections, maybe perhaps let's exclude Ekiti and Osun. There are always issues with I was going to talk about borrow me the word now. Borrow me the word now. Okay, challenges with people, you know, having logistics challenges, taking materials from one polling unit to another. Now you want to create 30,000 more. How do you intend to service all of this, bringing the polling units to about 150,000?
A good question. Now, you see, the issue of logistics, let me start this way. The issue of logistics, thankfully, you will notice we seem to be beginning to address that issue. In Ekiti State, we were able to achieve 95.25% of early commencement, that is by 8 a.m. Polling units, we had 95.25% of polling units opening by 8. But the catch is this. In Osun, we had more polling units, we had more local governments. We achieved 96.38. So that shows that it's not really the number of polling units. It is the system working. And we seem to be getting to the point where our systems are working. The reforms are being institutionalized. And everything about Osun elections shows that the systems are more seamless than it used to be. And so having more polling units really is not, because we have the same operational modality. We have what we call the super racks and the racks. These are structures that are created close to polling units to service a polling units in a certain area. And people camp overnight. We move away from the local government headquarters, we move away from the state office down to the local government headquarters, also move away from the headquarters down to these racks where people camp overnight, so that early morning on election day, they can move to the polling unit. So it doesn't matter how many of polling units you have in that area, the same racks will service those polling units. And let me also mention to you that these polling units are really not creations coming out of the blue. We have what you call voting points now, based on the turnout of voters at the polling units on election day. We've operated by what we call the voting points, whereby it's a single polling unit. But in order to ease voting, so that people, given the kind of system we are using, the remodified open ballot system where people queue up, you don't want 1,000 people queuing up on one single line. We break that up into what we call voting points. Many of these polling units we are talking about will just be institutionalizing these voting points as polling units, as they were.
Okay, let me take one of the set of words that Kayode Idowu used and come to Kayode Idowu here and ask you. He said something along the lines of this registration exercise, this double checking of your information and all that, that all of it runs from 3 days ago, which is the 20th, till the 25th. That being the case, there might not be another opportunity. And the level of awareness of the public is extremely limited. And because it's not everybody that's watching whatever message is going out now, and there are people who are not even aware that this process is on. What do you think about it? What's your thought?
Thank you very much. In the first place, may I state clearly that since the advent of Professor Jega, there have been massive improvement in the electoral process in Nigeria. However, on the point you just raised, I think you are being extremely courteous to INEC by saying that the information is limited, or the awareness is limited. It practically doesn't exist. It does not exist. People don't know that such a thing is going on. And for something that is, we're about to have general elections in 5 months' time or so. And for people, those who have just turned 18, those, like you said, who were not in the country, and so many other people, they're going to be disenfranchised because they're not aware that something like this is taking place for just 1 week. Now, one would have expected that more energy, more resources, more creativity would have gone into that than this issue of 30,000 polling units that they seem to have yanked out of the air and thrown to Nigerians. Because the spokesman of INEC had just told you here that there's actually a reduction, but that's what you mistook it. You thought there was an increase. No, there's a reduction in the numbers from 73 million to 70 million.
But he explained it
yes,
that was due to
the fact still remains that as of 2011 he had 73 million. 2014 you have 70 million. And even then, not just that you have 70 million. Now, Kano used to have 5 point something million. Now they have about 3 million. After the exercise, where they did the fingerprint identification system or something like that, while Lagos now has over 5 million. So if you are even creating these police stations, and not about the voting points that he raised, because if you had 1,000 people, they broke them into 300, for instance. So instead of all of you queuing on one queue to vote at one place, they will have 3 voting points. Let's use a primary school. That primary school will now have 3 voting points rather than only 1 voting point, which was the polling unit. Now, if you look at what they're doing, that's why I said that they should put more creativity into this and left those things alone. Because it's only in Nigeria now that you're seeing them tinkering with something as fundamental as this 5 months to the election time. Ordinarily, most jurisdictions, you don't tinker with such things 12 months before election.
How do you think this is going to impact on the election?
I'll get there. I'm getting there. Now, when having done this, you go to, we're talking about Boko Haram kidnapping girls. You just said that 131 days and your girls are not back. And you said some of us don't have humanity because some of us have some doubts. However, the point is this: people are running away from northeast and moving down to south. I'm from Anambra State. Abia State is there, River State, Bayelsa. These people are moving down there, giving them areas actually to stay. And you're still creating more polling units in such a place that, if anything, you should even remove them because they are not able to catch the votes. You start asking yourself, is there really a design to ensure that certain areas have more of these polling units than the rest of the country, knowing that INEC works on paper? If you say that a polling unit is supposed to have 500 voters, INEC will print 500 ballot papers for each polling unit. So if you have a 4,000 like they seem to have in Northeast now, and they have about 4,000 polling units in Northeast, where people are running away from, that means 4,000 times 500. You know what number that gives you already? Because they must print those numbers. And you know politicians, I was a politician, they will return those votes, whether the people read it or not. And remember, it's on paper. INEC works with paper. So rather, they ought to have put in more effort in letting people know, look, please go and register if you want to vote next year. But they're not doing that. They're more interested in just coming out, yanking from the air, polling station.
I see Mr. Idowu says...
sorry, I'm really sorry. Before I listen to you, I'd like Kayode to respond to that. Or you want to add?
To add to it, then he can...
Okay, then he will respond to it.
You raised the issue of educating, awareness.
Yes.
I think that's the most fundamental. I agree with Barrister Odidika on many of the issues he raised. Because the issue of polling, if you've been following the press in the past 1 week or so, even before now, there is a kind of brewing controversy in the country. What I feel INEC should avoid now is anything that can, let me tell you, we have to be proud of INEC. They've done so well in, at least people can begin to say that there is credibility. They've done it in Osun, they did it in Ekiti, in Edo, Anambra. So many of these states, they've performed so creditably. I think what INEC should be building on is creating more avenue for such performance, but not to now shoot itself in the leg by bringing things that will create more controversy. We are 5 months to the election.